The information provided in this podcast is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create an attorney-client relationship with Foyle Legal. For advice tailored to your situation, please consult a qualified legal professional. Welcome to Personal Injury Claims Explained by Foyle Legal, your trusted source for understanding personal injury claims in Western Australia. Each week, we simplify complex legal issues, from motor vehicle accidents to workplace injuries, so you can confidently navigate your rights and claim the compensation you deserve.
Okay, so picture this. You're in Perth, running a bit behind schedule and stuck behind, well, someone driving really slowly.
Yeah, I know the feeling.
Right, and you finally see a gap in the traffic.
Wow.
Yeah, you go for it.
Oh, no.
And crunch. You've got yourself a fender bender.
Not ideal.
Not ideal at all. But thankfully, everyone's okay. Just a little shaken up. You swap insurance details and think, well, that wasn't so bad.
You'd think so, right?
Exactly. But here's the thing about Western Australia. Things aren't always as straightforward as they seem.
That they are not.
Luckily, you've come prepared. You've got this super helpful guide from Foyle Legal, the Perth personal injury experts.
Always good to be prepared.
Right. And today we're taking a deep dive into what you absolutely have to do after a car crash in WA, even the little ones.
Smart move getting your hands on that guy. In WA, if there's of an injury, you're required to report the accident.
I didn't know that.
Think about it. Our memories aren't the best at the best of times.
That's true.
Let alone after something stressful like a car accident.
Okay.
A formal police report, it creates this objective record of what happened, just in case those seemingly minor aches and pains turn into something more serious later on.
Okay, that makes sense. Especially if there's a dispute further down the line. So let's say hypothetically someone doesn't report a minor fender bender. What's the worst that could happen?
Well, you could be prosecuted for not following the Road Traffic Act.
Oh, wow.
But probably more importantly, think about your insurance. Let's say you develop whiplash a week later, or your car has some hidden damage that only a mechanic would find. Without that initial police report, it's your word against the other drivers.
It's like that saying, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen.
Exactly. And that could be a very costly mistake to make.
I bet.
I remember this one case, Cheryl, a nurse here in Perth.
Okay.
She had a fender bender, thought it was no big deal.
Yeah.
But a few days later, she starts experiencing really bad back and neck pain. Turns out she needed ongoing physiotherapy.
Mm-hmm.
But because she didn't file that initial report, proving the accident caused her injuries was a nightmare.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it was a mess.
That makes the whole better safe than sorry approach seem very appealing.
Right.
And speaking of safe, the guide also stresses gathering evidence at the scene. What are we talking about here beyond the usual insurance info swap? Because I'm guessing blurry iPhone photos of a dented bumper won't cut it. Blurry iPhone photos, those definitely won't cut it.
Not a chance.
Yeah.
We're talking way more detail here.
Okay, so what? Full-on detective mode.
Absolutely. We're talking detailed photos of the damage
Okay.
to both cars, obviously.
Absolutely.
But also the position of vehicles before and after. Any skid marks, road conditions,
Right.
even the weather that day.
The weather.
It all matters. It's about painting a picture, right?
Yeah.
The more evidence you have, the stronger your position is if something comes up later. And don't forget good old-fashioned note-taking.
Notes. You mean like beyond writing down the other driver's details?
Way beyond that. Think of it like you're creating a timeline of the whole event. The exact time of the crash,
Yeah.
the specific location.
Okay.
Landmarks are super helpful for that. And I'm talking detailed. Was it raining? Was it sunny? Were there any other witnesses around? Even jotting down your initial impressions of the other driver's behavior. Did they seem okay?
Right.
It can all be useful later on.
So it's almost like you're preparing for a court case, even if you hope it never gets to that point.
Precisely. Because let's face it, memories can fade, details get muddled.
Yeah.
But having that meticulous documentation, that's like having a superpower if a dispute arises.
Right. Okay, so we've reported the crash. We've documented everything like absolute pros. What happens next? Let's talk about that C word.
Compensation.
Compensation. This Foyle legal guide mentions a no-win, no-fee system, which sounds...
It's too good to be true.
Well, yeah, a little bit.
I get it. People hear no win, no fee, and they think there's a catch. But it's actually very straightforward.
Okay.
It simply means you don't have to pay thousands of dollars in legal fees up front. The lawyer only gets paid if they win your case and you receive compensation.
So it does what it says on the tin.
Exactly.
But how does that work in practice? Is there a catch?
The key is transparency. Before you sign anything, Make sure the agreement clearly outlines what percentage of your compensation the lawyer would receive if they're successful. And it's also crucial to clarify if you'd be responsible for any disbursements. Things like court fees, even if your case is unsuccessful.
Okay, so it's all about understanding the fine print and not being afraid to ask questions.
100%. It's your case, your potential compensation. You have every right to be informed every step of the way. And remember, navigating the legal system can be overwhelming, especially after an accident.
Definitely.
Don't hesitate to seek legal advice early on. Understanding your rights and options is key.
That's a good point. And this guide also mentions that there are actually time limits for filing certain claims. So it's not like you have all the time in the world to sort things out.
That's right. But, and this is important, there are exceptions. Certain circumstances can affect those deadlines. So the sooner you seek legal advice, the better. You don't want to miss any crucial deadlines because of misinformation or delays.
This is eye-opening stuff. We've covered reporting, documenting, even touched on compensation. And honestly, it feels like we've only just scratched the surface of car accident law in WA. It feels like a lot, right?
Yeah.
And we're just scratching the surface here.
It's true. There's a lot to unpack. But you've made one thing very clear.
What's that?
Knowing your rights is so important. A little bit of legal knowledge can make a world of difference when you're dealing with the aftermath of an accident.
No matter how big or small.
Exactly. Don't be afraid to stand up for yourself. Ask those questions and make sure you really understand what's going on. You have rights.
You do. And this deep dive is a fantastic place to start. But it is just that, a starting point. There's always more to learn.
Always.
Speaking of learning more, this Foyle legal guide mentions something called the Motor Vehicle Third-Party Insurance Act, 1943.
Oh, yeah. Now, that one's a whole other story. We could do a whole other deep dive just on that.
Well, there you have it, folks. Sounds like we've got some homework to do. Until next time, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, stay safe out there on the roads.
Thank you for listening to Personal Injury Claims Explained by Foyle Legal. We hope this episode helped clarify your rights and next steps in your injury claim. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and visit foylelegal.com for more useful information. See you next time.